Hi everyone, good to see you. Hope you can see and hear me loud and clear. This is Sodi Toby from Luminous Leaders Limited, here to share with you this week's tips to improve your speaking skills and make it an enjoyable experience for you and your audience. I'll just wait for a bit for us to start. In the meantime, I'm going to share this live video on my personal Facebook page. So I encourage you to do the same, just as you come on, share the video with your friends. Also, feel free to type in the chat as well. Let's know who's watching and where you're watching from. So if you give me a few seconds, I'll try to do this. But apologies for coming in late. Facebook has been giving me problems with the new Facebook Live app, so it's a bit it has a bug and it doesn't load the live video as easily. So I had to go back to the old version. Hey ho, so much for modern technology. So if you give me a few seconds, I'm going to share the live video on my personal Facebook feed, and then I'll encourage you to do the same as well. So let's see, share, share, share. Cool. I think I've done it. Yes, posted. So we'll soon make a start. As you come on, just share with us where you're watching from and any questions you have regarding speaking. Um, It's meant to be something interactive. I don't have all the answers, but I've been on a journey myself, and I, public speaking was something that I used to hate and used to be quite poor at, and I've been able to improve over the years. And the tips I want to share are just things that have made the most impact on me over the years, and I hope you'll find it useful too. So we'll just wait a few more minutes. If you come on, just say where you're watching from. Yeah, I see some people that are on already. So just share, just say hi, and it'd be good to say hi to you, see who's watching. Unfortunately, I can't see who's watching, so I can't call you by name. But if you type in the chat, we can see. So today we're continuing. Last week I shared last week's tips to improve your speaking skills and make it an enjoyable experience for you and your audience. So this week, I wanted to share some more tips. Last week, I shared 3 tips. And this week, I wanted to share some more tips. I'd like to hear from you guys as you come on. Just say where you're calling from, or where you're watching from, and just say hi, okay? But in about 1 minute, we'll make an official start. So, yeah, so just as a reminder, last week we talked about, we mentioned 3 tips to improve our speaking skills and to make our speaking an enjoyable experience for us and for our audience. And if you were here last week, the 3 tips I mentioned had to do with how we prepare, how we prepare to speak publicly. Because last week I did mention that speaking is an important skill for every leader, every aspiring leader to have. Really being able to speak to a wide variety of audiences, of different levels of education, of different numbers. It's a skill that every leader needs to have, really, to increase their influence, to increase their ability to lead properly. And so that's why I thought to share this, because many people I've met, they actually are good leaders, but they come unstuck when it comes to speaking to a larger group or a larger crowd. And I used to be like that as well, but I have improved over the years, and I'm still learning. and some of the things I want to share here are things that I learned myself, sometimes the hard way. So last week, I shared three main tips. If you were here, you remember. The first one I shared last week was we need to focus our mindset on serving people rather than on how we come across. And I did mention that that was a mistake I used to make as well. Many times we focus on, our preparation because we want to come across good, we want to look good and all that. But if we have our mindset on serving people, it removes most of the nerves because the pressure is not all on us. Instead, our heart is to bring service to people, bring solutions, bring insight, bring something that is beneficial to people. And so that's one of the points I shared last week. The other point I shared last week was when preparing to speak publicly, we need to give room or space for ourselves, for you to speak. People gather together when you're the speaker, they want to hear you speak. They don't want to hear your notes. They don't want to hear your PowerPoint speak. They want to hear you speak. And so a mistake many speakers make is sometimes they plan too much what they're going to say, down to everything, down to the jokes and everything. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it can come across as not genuine. It can come across as a bit wooden. It can come across as not really engaging with the people. Your head will be down most of the time. So give space for the real you to come out. Give space for the real you to speak. People want to get an interest in you. They want to engage with you. And so that was the second point from last week. The third point from last week was we need to know our audience. You need to know who you're going to be speaking to. Just a rough idea of the demographics, the level of education, their background, what they're dealing with, what questions they're asking. I tend to, if I'm invited somewhere to speak, I tend to ask those kind of questions. So, say, for example, I'm invited to speak to a business. I'll say, okay, what level of management, what departments, what are they doing? What are the big issues that they're dealing with now? Sometimes I ask the organizers, what do you want to get out of this speaking session? What do you want the audience to do on the back of or what do you want to change in your team? And so these are things we need to understand before we embark on any public speaking. We need to understand our audience. So if you haven't seen the video on YouTube last week, you need to look out for our YouTube channel and follow it. So the YouTube channel is Luminous Leaders. So you can go there and look for the video. It's called simply This Week's Tips to Improve Your Speaking Skills and Make It an Enjoyable Experience for you and your audience. I would probably share the video in the chat after I finish speaking, but I don't want to share it now. So it's this right. But it was quite a good video. I recommend that you look for it on YouTube, and the channel is called Luminous Leaders. Follow it if you don't want to miss out on any of these tips that we'll be sharing. Also, you can find the video as well on our Luminous Leaders Facebook page. And if you haven't what's the word now? If you haven't liked or followed us on Facebook as well, do so you don't miss other tips. So I can see that some people are on, so we'll crack on with the matter for today. Just say hi if you've come on. I'd like us to chat a bit as well. I don't want it to be a monologue, but today I want to share 3 tips to improve our speaking skills and to make it an enjoyable experience for us and our audience. Remember, last week I shared 3. Today I want to share 3 more. And these are things that have impacted me. These are things that I've had to learn over the years to break out from my fears, to break out from my shell, to break out from my inhibitions, from the things that hold me back in terms of public speaking. So the first tip number 1 for today, is what I call do it afraid. Okay, so last week, most of the tips were about how we prepare before we go to give a speech to a group or a public group, on the mindset we need to have. This week, we're going into, now you're in the zone, you're about to speak or you started to speak. What tips can you give me? And my tip number one for this week is do it afraid. Okay, do it afraid. Some of you that follow us will remember I did a Facebook Live video a while ago called "Do Scary Things." Do scary things, and you want to find that video on our Facebook page, Luminous Leaders. It's called "Do Scary Things." It goes into more depth about this concept of doing it afraid, but I'm going to share a bit here. So basically, the concept is that we do things that might scare us, because fear is a natural reaction when we are being stretched, when we're being taken out of our comfort zone. And real growth comes when we begin to be stretched out of our comfort zone. So that fear is a natural reaction to real growth when we're being stretched. And it can be the same with public speaking. If you're not used to public speaking, as you come up to start to speak, there'll be a fear, there'll be a nervousness, and all that is natural. All that is natural. But what I will say as a tip is, don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you. Do it afraid if you have to. Start afraid if you have to. Start with your jitters if you have to. Just press on. Just keep going. Don't worry about what people think. Don't worry whether people may see your fear. Just press on, okay? Just press on. Just keep going at your own pace. You see, where I got this tip years ago, uh, some of you will know that I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian believer, and I was watching a Christian preacher many years ago. One time, her name is Joyce Meyer, and she was preaching a message that was titled "Do It Afraid." Do it afraid. And she shared what this principle I'm sharing with you. And she shared her story, how she was a nervous wreck and she never felt like she had the confidence to be a preacher or to do anything really productive or meaningful in her life. And she had to learn this truth that, God had to teach her this truth that, you start, do it afraid, because fear is only there to try to stop you from moving forward. Fear has no real power. The fear wins when you're stopped, when you decide to recoil, when you decide to pull back from that progress you're making. So do it afraid. Don't let fear stop you. If you're shaking, start the speech shaking. If you're nervous, start it nervous. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. You see, because many times when we start and we begin to press through and we keep our focus, remember what I shared last week, keep our focus on serving the people, keep our focus on sharing something of benefit to people, keep your focus on being a blessing to people. Once you keep your focus and you ignore this fear, I'll tell you what will happen. That fear will disappear. It will just go away. You will notice that as you keep your focus, as the speech is going on, suddenly you look for that fear and you won't see that fear again. I've seen this many times in my own life. You start out nervous, but you say, okay, I'm not gonna meditate on that fear. I'm not gonna put my focus on that fear. I'm not gonna think, oh well, everybody sees me nervous now and it's a wreck. No, just keep focused, keep going. I want to help people. I want to share something that will be of benefit to people. I want to bless people. Just keep going. And you find that as you do, that fear begins to wear away, because the fear comes to try to stop you, and you motor on. As you motor on, the fear goes, and you find that you now come into your own. And guess what? The more you have opportunities to speak, you find that the time of that fear becomes shortened and shortened until suddenly you don't even feel that fear again. So, tip number one is do it afraid. Start afraid if you have to. Don't let fear stop you. So that brings me nicely to tip number two. Feel free to type in the chat. It's a bit quiet here. If you've got any questions, or you just want to say hi, I don't know who's watching. A few people are watching. Feel free to type. Also, share this video if it's benefiting you. Share it with your friends. Share it on your Facebook feed. But yeah, quite like to know what you think. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments as well, feel free to type in the chat. So the second tip I'm going to share tonight. So tip number one was do it afraid. Tip number two, it's common sense, but you know, my mom always says common sense is not always common. Tip number two is you grow by practicing. You grow by practicing. For me, this is probably the most single-handedly, the tip that's most single-handedly improved me as a public speaker. Practice. Practice. You see, when we have a natural fear of public speaking, our natural reaction is to try to avoid it, is to try to reject opportunities to speak, is to try to recoil, is to try to turn away. Somebody says, come, we need someone to speak to this group of people. Is to try to say, no, 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 not me, I'm the worst person. That's the natural reaction, because we don't like that feeling of fear. We don't like that feeling of feeling, like a failure. We don't like that feeling of feeling like we're vulnerable, we're being exposed to lots of people, or people are laughing at us. We don't like that feeling. So the natural reaction is we reject it. We say, no, I don't want it. No, I can't, I'm not good at it. No, I don't want it. But what we're rejecting is actually what will help us improve. That's the truth of the matter. And so that's the irony. We grow by practicing. We grow by practicing. So when we have opportunities to speak and we are rejecting it because of fear, that's the wrong reaction. That's the wrong reaction. Instead, our reaction should be to volunteer. Even if we're not asked directly, if someone just comes to a group of people, said, oh, we want someone to speak to this group of people. Anyone want to do that? Raise your hand up. Take every opportunity you can to practice, because that's how you're going to grow. That's how you're going to get better. Take every opportunity. Take every opportunity to practice, whether it's prepared speeches, unprepared speeches. Sometimes I go to parties or weddings and then somebody says, well, do you want to give a speech? I always love to do those kinds of things, because that's how I grow. Sometimes it's totally unprepared. But hey ho, what's the worst that can happen? You get stuck and people laugh, and that's fine. That's fine. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. So I just want to encourage you, my friends, to think about opportunities. Take opportunities to practice. Don't shy away from them. If there's opportunities being made available, take them. I mean, one of the things I used to do is I'll attend, sometimes I'll attend like Toastmasters Club, Speakers Club. Some of you might have heard of Toastmasters Speakers Club. Yeah, look them up. It's a good place to learn. It's a good place to practice, and find one close to you and go there, because this is where people go to learn to be speakers. They hone their skills. And when I visited I didn't go to the Toastmasters Club a lot, but I visited there a few times. And one of the things I liked that they did was something they called table topics. And the table topics would be someone will go around asking people who wants to participate in the table topics. And the table topic, nobody knew what the topics was. And so if they call your name, then and as you're walking out to speak, they'll give you your table topic. Your topic will be blah, blah, blah. And it's always something quite random, sometimes quite obscure. So you're not prepared for it. But it's you normally it's usually a short time. I think it's about 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I can't remember, but not more than 5 minutes. And it's a really short time, and you're being timed and all that. And I enjoy doing that. I remember the first time I went to the Toastmasters Club, and I was just looking around as a newcomer, and and then one lady came to me and said, do you want to do table topics? I said, what's table topics? And she told me, and I said, yeah, yeah. But my natural reaction, as someone who's nervous about public speaking, would be to say, no, I don't want to do this. I'm new here. I'm going to be exposed. I'm going to feel vulnerable. I'm going to make a hash of it. But it's important that we learn to practice, to take every opportunity to practice. Now we live in an age where we have things like Facebook Live, fantastic opportunities to practice. If there's anything on your heart you want to share with your friends, go on Facebook Live. That's a very nice and easy way to practice. Even if you share with 3 people, practice. You see, because as you practice, you hone your skills. And as you hone your skills, you get better. You learn how to deal with nerves that want to come and stop you, and fear that wants to come and stop you. All those things come with practice, And after each session, when you practice, or each opportunity, always go back and review your speech, review your how you fared. Think about what you did well. Think about what the audience responded to well. Think about what you didn't do so well, what you could have improved. And then each time you go back with an opportunity to speak, you try to implement some things. You learn things. Also, if there were other people speaking as well, learn from them as well. Look at what they're doing, learn from what they're doing right, learn from even mistakes they're making, learn from what works and what doesn't work in your speech and in others' speech. Okay, so I hope you're finding this useful. If you're watching and you have questions that you like me to address in this live video, please type in the chat. But I really like to hear from you. Also, share with your friends if you feel you're benefiting. So take every opportunity to practice, because you grow by practicing. No matter how many books you read about public speaking, no matter how many videos you watch like this, the singular most important thing that will help you grow is practice. It doesn't matter how many books you read, until you get on the floor and start doing it, you're not going to get better. I can tell you that for sure. But once you start practicing, you'll get better. So seize those opportunities. Don't worry about making mistakes. You will improve with each attempt. So I hope this is helpful. So we've shared 2 tips already. So the first tip was do it afraid. And tip number 2, which I've just finished now, is we grow by practicing. Now, I want to share a third tip, which I hope will help you. Remember, we're talking about this week's tips to improve your speaking skills and make it an enjoyable experience for you and your audience. If you missed last week's video, look for it. This is week 2. Look for it on our Facebook page. Also, look for it on our YouTube channel. So, tip number 3. Tip number 3 is simply be yourself. Be yourself. In tip number 2, I said learn from those who you watch speaking. The temptation is, if you're not a confident speaker, you might want to copy people too much. You might want to copy people, especially people you think speak well. But learn to be yourself. For me, it's so important. Okay, it's so important. Don't try to be like any other person. Don't try to copy people too much, to copy their style. It's important we learn to be ourselves. You see, because the most interesting and the most engaging speech you will ever give is the one when you are most yourself than anyone else. I'll say that again. The most interesting and the most engaging speech you will ever give is the one where you are most yourself than anyone else. So be yourself. Be yourself. That's where the real gem of you as a speaker will come from. That's when the real you will come. And when the real you comes out, it's lovely, it's unique, it's interesting, it's engaging. And so that's why I'll encourage you, be yourself. Yes, you can learn things from other people. You can develop and you can use, things like tips I'm sharing with you, things with other people to develop your style. But don't try to, copy someone's style, in a way that it's not you. You can adapt things, but make it your own. Be yourself. It's so important. It's so important because no matter how much you try, you can't be a great copy of someone else. But you can be a good copy of someone else, but you can't be an excellent copy. A copy is always a copy. Okay, be yourself because you're the original you there is in the world. So be yourself. Be comfortable in your own skin. Okay, be comfortable in your own skin. Yeah, someone else might have done a speech before your presentation and they've done in their own style. Maybe they're very animated and they're all kind of flailing their arms around, and and you feel like you have to do that. If that's not you, don't do that. Okay, if that's not you, don't do that. Be you. Do what comes natural to you. Some people, you read some tips about speaking, or you read you watch some videos, and some people say, well, you have to use your hands a lot. Some people say, well, you don't have to use your hands. And there's so much advice out there, so much conflicting stuff. Just be yourself. Do what comes natural. If you feel like you need to wave your arms all around, wave your arms. If you feel like you want to move from left to right, move from left to right. Do what comes natural for you. Okay? Because people want to see your personality. They want to see your real personality. They want to hear the stories you tell in your own way. They don't want to see another person's personality. They want to see you. They want to see your own humor. They want to see your own humor. They don't want to see another person's humor. They want to see your own humor. It's your own humor that's interesting, not another person's humor through you. So they want to see your own humor. They want to be at home with you. They want you to be at home with them. You see, when you're yourself, you convey to the audience that you're at home with them, that you are comfortable with them, and it makes the audience comfortable with you. So, for example, one of the things I do as my own style, of speaking sometimes, some of you know that I do some itinerant ministry. I preach in churches sometimes, and sometimes my style when I'm preaching or speaking in a church, or sometimes I ask the audience questions as I'm talking, not rhetoric questions, but questions which I expect them to respond to as a group, and I ask them these questions and they respond, and it's like sometimes that's my way of engaging with the audience, rather than me just talking and talking. So that's my own style, but I'm not going to say, well, that's how it has to be. That's just my own style. That's something I started doing because I just felt comfortable doing it that way. So, yeah, so be your own self, be yourself, okay? Hi, Jenny, good to see you. Be yourself. So, if you're just joining us, we've been sharing this week's tips to improve your speaking skills and make it an enjoyable experience for you and your audience. We shared 3 tips so far. The first tip is that we should do it afraid, okay? Don't let fear stop you. And then the second tip is that we grow by practicing. We take every opportunity we have to practice, practice, practice. Whether that be in doing Facebook Live videos, speaking to small groups. Yes, we can start small and build up as we go along, but take every opportunity, whether it's prepared speeches, unprepared speeches, take opportunities to practice. And then we talked about being yourself. So, as we wrap up, begin to get your questions ready. I've not seen any questions yet in the chat, except I haven't been looking properly. But as we begin to wrap up for tonight, hi Inara, long time, good to see you. As we begin to wrap up, um, I want us to I want to make us aware of an event that we've got coming up. It's called a mastermind, and a mastermind is a facilitated learning experience for professionals who are drawn from various walks of life, people who are ambitious to make progressive change in their life. And we're going to be doing one that is called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. You don't want to miss it. As a new date for it, some of you have heard me talk about it. We're starting this mastermind now on the 30th of April, and it's running for 10 weeks every Thursday night from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. It's only for 10 people, so make sure you get your space. People have already been inquiring about it today. So don't miss out. Join this group. Because the reason why I'm sharing this is because we're going to be talking about these kind of things in real depth. How we connect with people, how we engage with our audience, how we influence people at different levels in our organizations, whether it's our peers, whether it's our bosses, whether it's those we lead. We're going to be learning how to be more effective as leaders, really, how, people who connect well, people who communicate well, what they do differently. We're going to learn how to build lasting connections with people that bring positive influence in their lives. So these are some of the things that we're going to be touching on this mastermind. So if this appeals to you, make contact with us. It's going to be a good time because this is one of the things that makes people get stuck in their careers when they're not able to connect with people, bring influence at various levels of their career. It's so important, so critical. So it's a small investment in yourself. You don't want to miss it. I promise you. We're even offering 100% money back guarantee. If you complete the course and you felt you didn't get anything from it, we give you your money back. We're that confident that it's going to be potentially life changing for you. So booking 30th of April. You don't want to miss it. It's a steal, really. It's only £60. You don't want to miss it. So booking. And the way to booking is on the website, which I will share in the chat. But our website is www.luminousleaders.ltd. .ltd. Remember that. So look it up. It's there. I'll just share some feedback from our last few masterminds that people have attended. So we have a very high approval rating of all our participants in our training. So our last mastermind, all the participants rated an average of 9.6 over 10 in terms of their experience. So this is a very high quality program, and I know I'm biased, but I can speak highly of it. Here's what somebody said. They said, I enjoyed this mastermind from the first session to the last. Sodi is a great teacher and allowed us all to work at our own pace. It was very informative mastermind that I definitely want to implement in my daily life from now on. Thank you, Sodi. You're doing an amazing job. Another person says, awesome program and a great opportunity to kickstart and unleash your potential. And another one said, to keep growing, join this mastermind. Simply put. So, what are you waiting for? Hope we see you in about 3 weeks' time for Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. I'm just going to share on our Facebook chat now where you can book, and then I'm going to take any questions that we may have about what I've just shared or any other questions that you may have. Just remember, when you go on the website to book, it's simply just follow the check through, click on the green add to cart button, and then just go to the checkout basket, which will be somewhere at the top right of your page. Click on it, go through checkout, and the rest is self-explanatory. So do you have any questions? We're talking about public speaking. Any questions on how we to improve? Any areas you want to improve? Any things you find confusing with public speaking? This is your moment to share, or any tips you want to add to the tips that I've shared as well. You know, things that you found helpful in your own career. Do share in the chat. I see that a few people are still on watching. Yeah, if you're bold enough, share where do you get stuck? Where do you get stuck? Where do you normally get stuck in public speaking? Um, which areas do you particularly need help in or tips on? Yeah, any comments you have, it's all yours. I'll just wait for maybe the next few minutes and see if there's any questions. If not, we'll call it a night. So I hope we're all keeping safe and the social distancing isolation in most of the world is not driving us crazy yet. I've been enjoying mine. I get to spend more time with my family, and we're all in the same uh, home more often. So that's for me, that's a plus. So yes, any questions, any comments, any questions on public speaking, anything that you feel bothers you about it, or any areas that you want to improve? Are there any thoughts you have, any comments, or even areas where you don't agree with me? You feel free to share that. Absolutely, we are more than open to that. But I hope this has served you well. Would just be so while I wait for the questions, I have posted where we can get our tickets for our next mastermind, which is the one which I shared about everyone communicates um, if you connect. So I'm also going to share the YouTube video where we had the last, if you remember, I told you about last week's tips. So for those of you who missed last week, I'm going to share that YouTube video with you just now to make it easier. But if you got any questions about public speaking, we're going to finish in the next 4 minutes ish. If you got any questions about that, feel free to also share, type in the chat. Okay. So let's see who's on. Right. Let's see. Luminous Leaders. Okay. So, all right. So just waiting for questions. We've got roughly 2 minutes to go. Okay. If you've got any questions, any comments. Also, I'm going to share now in the chat. I think this is the link to the YouTube video for last week's tips. Feel free to look at it. There are 3 different tips from what we shared tonight. But I hope what we shared tonight has been helpful to you. If you found it helpful, leave your comments as well in our Facebook page. Also, feel free to do the same in our YouTube page as well. So, any questions? It's been really quiet. We've got quite a number of people watching. Don't be shy. Any comments? Any comments? If you got any question about the mastermind which I shared about, feel free. You could send us an email to our email address, which is info@luminousleaders.ltd. So just type that now. So if you got any question about the upcoming mastermind course, okay. Let's see. We'll give it 1 more minute. If we don't have any questions, we'll call it a night. But one thing to say is that if you're watching this video later, that is after it's been recorded, feel free as well to type your questions in the chat and we'll answer it through the chat as well. So I think in the absence of any other questions, I can't see anything anyone else is typing. So I just want to thank you guys for being with us tonight. I hope what we shared has been very useful to you. Remember, practice, practice, practice. No matter how many tips we share with you, the only way you can get better is by practice. So practice gives you the opportunity to put these tips into practice. So I hope we've been able to serve you well tonight. We'll probably do at least one more of these weekly tips to improve your speaking skills and make it an enjoyable experience for you and your audience. So look forward to seeing you next time, maybe next week. So in the meantime, all I can say is stay safe. It's me, Sodi, signing out on behalf of Luminous Leaders. God bless you. See you soon. Bye-bye.